72%. Chapter 421 The Lower Realm of the Goddess. I don't know how long it took. The Sun Elf crown finally cracked. In an instant, even more terrifying divine power and energy burst out. Once this energy explodes, it will not only destroy the Forbidden Area, but also most likely destroy the entire Elf Imperial City, turning everything in the city into dust. Even the Queen of Nature Spirits is not immune. After all, this is an artifact that self-destructs. The explosive energy contained in it is not magic, but divine power. Fortunately, that didn't happen. Under the guidance of the secret technique and the Elf Mother Tree, this energy directly penetrated the rules barrier of the floating island world, and entered the battlefield of all realms with the belief of the Elf Mother Tree. In fact, even demigods who have reached a certain level of peak power can do this. For example, the Queen of Nature Spirits. She can completely use her own power to open a crack in the rules and enter the battlefield of all realms. The reason why that Sun Elf crown must be self-destructed is because that Sun Elf crown contains blessings from the Goddess of Nature and Elves, and can be more directly connected to the Goddess of Nature and Elves. If it were the Queen of Nature Elf, she might not be able to contact her. After all, there are countless natural elves and gods in the battlefield of all realms. The Queen of Nature Elf is just an elf emperor in the mortal world. In the mortal world, her power is overwhelming, but in the battlefield of all realms where gods roam the earth, her status is not outstanding. It is naturally not an easy task to contact the Goddess of Nature and Elves, who is the supreme God King. It's even possible that the Goddess of Nature and Spirits won't listen to her prayers at all. In the universe, there are countless groups of natural elves. How could the aloof Goddess of Nature and Elves care about the life and death of elves in a small mortal world? Therefore, the only choice is to self-destruct the blessed Sun Elf crown. Success. The Elf Mother Tree breathed a sigh of relief and said to the Nature Elf Queen, "Now we need to pray that Her Majesty the Goddess will have mercy on His humble believers and send a miracle." Hope so. The Queen of Nature Elf is in a very bad mood now. With a complicated expression, she put away the fragments of the Sun Elf crown scattered on the ground. These fragments no longer possess any divinity or divine power, and even the most basic material properties have disappeared, completely turning into a pile of useless weapons. Even if she found the Empire's god-level blacksmith, she couldn't repair it. I can only put it together reluctantly and treat it as a collection. But right now, an extremely terrifying divine thought suddenly descended into this forbidden area along the cracks in the rule barrier penetrated by the Sun Elf crown. At the same time, the statues of gods located in the natural elf imperial capital also emitted bright divine light. All of them are statues of goddesses of nature and spirits. The power of faith that had carried them for countless years emerged one after another, and then gathered in the forbidden area, condensing into an extremely beautiful figure under the control of that terrifying divine thought. The figure was wearing a long turquoise skirt and a 9-color garland on her head. Her long golden hair draped over her shoulders, as smooth as silk. There are no particularly gorgeous decorations on her body. Let people see the beauty of nature. Pure, soft, exuding a surging breath of life, and a radiance like motherhood. She is the Goddess of Nature and Spirits. The founder of the elves. She is also the mother goddess believed in by all natural spirits in the universe. Your Majesty the Goddess saw this figure. The Nature Elf Queen and the Elf Mother Tree suddenly exclaimed in unison. They had no idea that not only did the Goddess of Nature and Elves actually arrive, but she also arrived so quickly that it even seemed a bit sudden to both of them. From the self-destruction of Sun Elf crown to the arrival of the Goddess of Nature and Elves, there seemed to be less than 5 breaths of time in between. It was such a surprise to them. In person, there are more surprises. Especially the Queen of Nature Elf, she almost cried with joy. After many years, their natural elves finally waited for the Goddess of Nature and Elves. This means they have not been abandoned by the goddess. The reason why their previous prayers were not answered by the goddess is simply because of the problem of this floating island world. Praise to the goddess, Your Majesty. The Queen of Nature Elf said excitedly. It is an honor for our entire elf family to be able to meet you. Your brilliance is as eternal and dazzling as the sun. The Goddess of Nature and Elves slowly walked down from midair. His eyes fell on the Elf Queen. Her face was shrouded in a layer of mist, with only a pair of star-like eyes revealed. Although I couldn't see clearly what she looked like, I knew without even thinking that the elf goddess must be an extremely beautiful woman. Of course, appearance is not a very important thing to gods. After all, gods can change their appearance at will. No matter how beautiful you look or how sexy your body is, you can create it yourself. The main thing to look at is temperament and coercion. As long as the divine power is strong enough, even if it looks like a pig, it is still extraordinary. At this time, the goddess of nature and elves finally spoke. The Lord of Holy Light, who has disappeared for tens of millions of years, really came to this world. Her voice was like a gentle breeze. It is illusory and misty, and it can shake the souls of living beings. People instinctively dare not deceive in any way. 72%. Chapter 422. Whether the Lord of Holy Light is true or false remains to be confirmed. Sure enough, it has to be the Lord of Holy Light. The elf mother tree was glad that she had reported this most important information to the goddess of nature and elves. Otherwise, even if Her Majesty the goddess comes to this world, it won't be so soon. The most important is, the founder of their natural elf clan, the great goddess of nature and elves, actually calls the Lord of Holy Light of the angel clan her crown. This is a very awe-inspiring honorific. The legend is indeed true. The power of the Lord of Holy Light has surpassed the level of the supreme god. Even the goddess of nature and spirits must be respected. Here, the Queen of Nature elf respectfully replied, "To Your Majesty the goddess, as far as we know, the Lord of Holy Light came to our world as a mortal, together with those professionals from other worlds. He established a kingdom in the dark forest tens of thousands of kilometers away. The envoys of our empire just met him in the capital of the Kingdom of Heaven, and saw millions of angels in his capital." The Queen of Nature elf told the entire story of the incident to the goddess of nature and elf, and emphatically explained that the Lord of Holy Light wanted their natural elf empire to surrender. After listening, the goddess of nature and elves fell silent. She did not sense the breath of lies in the nature elf queen. It means what she said is true. As for whether the Lord of Holy Light is real, it remains to be confirmed. One cannot simply rely on the knowledge of a group of mortal nature elves and the millions of angels to determine that it is the Lord of Holy Light who has disappeared for tens of millions of years. After all, what are millions of angels? When the Holy Demon War started, the Lord of Holy Light ordered the 10,000 Gigayan angel army to fight against the Void Demon army, almost destroying the battlefield of all realms. Even more stars outside the territory collapsed and turned into a graveyard for void demons. Compared to the vast ocean-like army of tens of thousands of angels, millions of angels are just a drop in the bucket and not worth mentioning. The Queen of Nature elf looked at the beautiful and noble figure in front of her and asked respectfully, "My great goddess, once the angel army attacks, how should we respond? Please guide us in the direction of pursuing our destiny." The goddess of nature and spirits glanced at her. Starry eyes are full of dreamy colors. "Aren't you ready?" The Queen of Nature elf was suddenly stunned and said in panic, "My goddess, I forgive you, I." The goddess of nature and elves waved her hand. She was in no mood to blame a little nature spirit right now. Even if this is a queen, it can still be said to be insignificant in front of her. The only thing she cares about now is whether the Lord of Holy Light in the Kingdom of Heaven is real or fake. If it's true, it would be wonderful to surpass the Supreme Lord of Holy Light and actually become a professional lord of another world as a mortal, and also play war games with those mortal creatures. The truth behind it is worthy of her careful consideration. The goddess of nature and elves said calmly, "I am going to the dark forest to confirm the true identity of the ruler of the heavenly kingdom. As for the rest, you decide for yourself." "I understand, Your Majesty the great goddess." The nature elf queen responded with some trepidation. And when she raised her head again, she found that the goddess of nature and elves had disappeared out of thin air. It really comes and goes quickly. At the same time, the Queen of Nature elf also breathed a sigh of relief. Facing the Supreme Mother Goddess of the Nature Elves, she was under extraordinary pressure and did not even dare to breathe even slightly heavier. Fortunately, Her Majesty the Goddess didn't blame us. The Elf Mother Tree, which had remained silent, finally spoke at this moment, with a hint of fear in her voice. Hearing this, the Queen of Nature elf smiled bitterly and said, "Even if Her Majesty the Goddess blames us, it is because our belief is not strong enough. If her faith remains steadfast, she would not ask the Goddess of Nature and elves how their natural elven empire should make a choice when facing the angel army. Firm belief, fanatical belief. It would make her choose to go to war with the angel army without hesitation. Even if he dies on the battlefield, he dies for his faith." Instead of asking the goddess of nature and spirits to give her an oracle to tell her what to do, as she did now. It can only be said that the countless years of miraculous blank period have shaken their faith. Just like Pope Wallace of Light. But overall, the Queen of Nature elf is always better than the Pope of Light, Wallace. She is still a believer in the goddess of nature and elves, but her level of belief is not high. As for the Pope of Light, Wallace, he is a pure false believer, not even an ordinary believer with the lowest level of belief. Therefore, he was just arrogant enough to dare to challenge Angelia. As long as he has a little bit of faith, it won't be like this. The elf mother tree said, "Now let's wait for the goddess to bring back the news." The Queen of Nature elf nodded. As Her Majesty the goddess said, "We are actually ready. If the Lord of Holy Light is fake, we will fight to the death. If this is true, then surrender. The angel army cannot conquer the will of their natural elves. Even if the empire is destroyed and the race is destroyed, she will not lower her head easily. But if you are facing the Lord of Holy Light, then there is nothing more to say, just surrender is a sign of respect." After all, even the goddess of nature and elves respectfully calls the Lord of Holy Light her crown prince. No matter how hard-headed she was, she would not dare to fight against such a terrifying existence. 73%. Chapter 423 Omen. Let's talk about the Holy City. After the red-dressed female bishop and a group of temple knights retreated, Lin Yu summoned all the blacksmiths and pharmacists in the city. Today's Paradise Kingdom already has tens of thousands of blacksmiths and nearly 1,000 pharmacists. This is the harvest after conquering the Orc royal court. Thanks to the hard work of these blacksmiths and pharmacists, his 10 blacksmith shops and 5 pharmacist mansions can provide him with 100,000 pieces of equipment and tens of thousands of medicines every day. Just the equipment and medicines produced can bring him huge profits. The reason why Lin Yu called the blacksmith and pharmacist over was because he had just inquired about Myriad World's floating island and learned that the authenticated local equipment and medicines could give them item information. The equipment and medicines presented by the Holy Sea of Light all come from fertile lands. It is a local product. Unlike the loot that explodes, the item information is directly displayed. Lin Yu plans to ask the blacksmiths and pharmacists to identify all the local equipment and medicines, and then sell them on the island trading platform. Although these equipment can still only be used by human professionals. It is not a universal equipment for all races. But that doesn't matter. After all, combat professionals are all humans. There are millions of pieces of equipment, and most of them are high-quality products. Once they are all sold, they will definitely bring me hundreds of millions of gold coins. Lin Yu sighed with emotion. If he had known that this could still happen, he would have ordered the Illuminati cultists to bring over the equipment, and the size of his angel army would have exceeded 10 million long ago. Don't wait until now. Of course, it's not too late. Whenever he has gold coins, he can summon angels. After all the blacksmiths and pharmacists in the city gathered, Lin Yu handed the space items containing equipment and formation to the elf blacksmith Nicole and the old pharmacist Denver and asked them to take them for identification. Say one more thing. After this period of unremitting efforts, elf blacksmith Nicole has successfully broken through the level and been promoted to master blacksmith. Her own professional level has also reached the late extraordinary stage. Although among tens of thousands of blacksmiths, elf Nicole is not very outstanding in terms of professional level or blacksmith level, but she is still very talented. The same goes for Nicole's good sister Emma. Both of these elf blacksmiths deserve good training. After the matter was settled, Lin Yu suddenly said to Secretary N, who had been standing quietly beside him, "I don't know why, but I suddenly have an inexplicable feeling, as if something big is about to happen. Is this an omen? Maybe it's just my misunderstanding." Lin Yu himself agrees with the former and thinks it is an omen. After all, he is not an ordinary person now. The professional level has reached the late stage of demigod. The number of laws mastered has reached more than 30 kinds. In addition, he also has a very deep understanding of the mysteries of the law of destiny. It is only a matter of time before he can condense the origin of the law and completely master the power of the law of destiny. Take him now. This sudden, inexplicable feeling can basically be determined as an advanced prediction of future major events. In the Orc royal court, his ability is the perfect choice for the great prophet. Angelia thought for a while and then said to Lin Yu, "My lord's feeling is not wrong. What you predicted was about the events that happened in the natural elf empire." "Oh, what exactly is it? Can you see?" Lin Yu asked quickly. Angelia nodded and said, "Just now, the queen of the natural elf empire made contact with the goddess of nature and elves who are on the battlefield of all realms at the cost of sacrificing an artifact. Now, the divine thoughts of the goddess of nature and elves have come to this world. And she is on her way to our heavenly kingdom. Goddess of nature and spirits. Lin Yu's pupils shrank slightly, and he breathed in. Is it the creator of the natural elves, the goddess of nature and elves who has the status of the supreme god? Yes, my lord. Angelia's expression was as calm as ever, and she said respectfully, but don't worry, the relationship between the natural gods and our angel clan is quite good. Moreover, you are the creator of our angel family. His status is higher than hers. Not to mention a divine thought, even if the true form comes, she will not dare to be disrespectful to you. Quote. Hearing this, Lin Yu's mouth twitched slightly. Secretary Anne's words did not calm him down completely. After all, he was a supreme god king. He has never even seen an ordinary true god, let alone the supreme god king. According to the level of personality, the supreme god king of the foreign race is comparable to the 18-winged archangel of the angel race. There is no bodyguard like the 18-winged archangel beside him. So the instinct is a bit weak. But for some reason, Lin Yu's worries quickly disappeared when she looked at the elegant and beautiful secretary and beside her. It feels like as long as Angelia is here, everything will be peaceful. Then just wait for her to arrive. I also want to see what this goddess of nature and elves looks like. 73%. Chapter 424 The Destruction of the Goblin Kingdom. Just when Lin Yu was waiting for the arrival of the goddess of nature and elves, a not inconsiderable war also took place in the Runkle Prairie, thousands of kilometers away. The location of the battlefield is in the capital of the Goblin Kingdom. The Goblin Kingdom is one of the few kingdom-level forces in the Runkle Prairie. Generally, it exists independently. In special circumstances, it must be loyal to the Orc Royal Court. After all, the Orc Royal Court is the actual ruler of the Runkle Prairie. If you don't obey, a small elf kingdom will definitely not be able to survive. For the Goblin Kingdom, they now have good news and bad news. The good news is that the Orc Royal Court has been destroyed and they now have autonomy. The bad news is that the culprit who destroyed the Orc Royal Court has already reached their royal capital. According to incomplete statistics, there are about 1 million orcs in total and 2 million soldiers from the Kingdom of Heaven, surrounding the capital of the Goblin Kingdom. Thousands of meters high in the sky, there are still 2 towering angel cities suspended. This situation, it made millions of goblins inside and outside the royal capital tremble. But in the end, they still had some courage when the kingdom was facing destruction. A large number of legions were organized to prepare for a fight with Lin Yu's army. In addition to the goblin legions, there are also some local orc legions on the battlefield, as well as legions of other races. They are all the remnants of the angel army after its elimination. Now, they have lost everything. They can only gather to the nearest Goblin Kingdom, trying to use the power of the Goblin Kingdom to fight Lin Yu's army to the death. The only thing that made them happy was that the angel army in the Kingdom of Heaven had already withdrawn. Even in those 2 cities of angels, there are only a few magical angels who can spread faith. The number is not large, and the total number is less than 1,000. As long as they can defeat the 3 million armies of all races sent by the Kingdom of Heaven under the bombardment of the 2 cities of angels, they will be able to win this war. Soon, the horn of war sounded. The army of the Kingdom of Heaven poured into the goblin capital like a tide. At the same time, the magic cannons set up on the walls of the royal capital began to fire wildly. With the appearance of bright beams of light, small mushroom clouds suddenly appeared in the army camp of the Kingdom of Heaven, and deafening roars appeared. With one blow, a large number of the kingdom's troops fell. This scene made the goblins inside and outside the capital cheer excitedly. At the same time, at an altitude of several thousand meters, there were densely packed aircraft firing at the 2 cities of angels. Those aircraft are one of the war weapons of the Goblin Kingdom, the Goblin airship. They are small and thin, only about 5 meters. Each goblin airship has a goblin sitting on it and is loaded with a small magic cannon and 2 machine gun-like weapons on the left and right. The machine gun can fire continuously. The rate of fire reaches 30 rounds per second. The bullets fired are not entities, but condensed energy. In addition to weapons, the goblin airship also has a propeller on the back and a wing on the left and right. Together with the elemental magic array, the goblin airship can easily fly to high altitudes and fly flexibly. The war power of a single goblin airship is far inferior to that of an elf airship. But numbers are better. There are only a few hundred airships in Elf Garden. However, the number of airships in the Goblin Kingdom is as high as more than 100,000. densely packed like a swarm of bees. When hundreds of thousands of goblin airships flew into the sky together and besieged the two cities of angels, the scene was quite shocking, much more awesome than the movie, Independence Day. However, it was a shock. It's actually of no use at all. The attack of the goblin airship cannot harm the city of angels at all. Even the magical defensive shield of the city of angels cannot be broken. The densely packed magic energy cannons and energy bullets hitting the shield of City of Angels could only cause small circles of ripples. The scene looks like drizzle falling on the lake. There is an aesthetic feeling. Just when the pilots of the Goblin airship were struggling with how to break through the shield and destroy that City of Angels, the attack from City of Angels arrived. Boom, 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 boom. Sacred beams of light pierced the battlefield. Wherever they passed, Goblin airships exploded like fireworks. Finally, it hit the defensive shield of the Goblin capital. With just one round of shelling, the defensive shield of the Goblin capital collapsed. With the arrival of the second round of bombardment, all the walls of the Goblin capital collapsed, and all the magic cannons were destroyed. This comparison is a complete victory, like a crushing victory. They were so frightened that some goblins wanted to surrender on the spot. At the same time, the gathered goblin legions, local orc legions, and legions of various forces were also bombarded from the City of Angels. And immediately there were heavy casualties. The magic energy cannon loaded in Angel City is so powerful that it cannot be compared to the magic energy cannon of the Goblin clan. It's like the difference between a missile and a grenade. After several rounds of shelling, the morale of the Goblin camp was directly destroyed. The 3 million troops of the Kingdom of Heaven also took advantage of the opportunity to break through the enemy defense lines outside the city and poured into the Goblin King's capital. In less than an hour, the Goblin capital fell. The goblins, orcs, and native races who were lucky enough to survive all raised white flags and surrendered. 73%. Chapter 425 Wars in Major Regions. Similar scenes also occurred in the royal capitals of several other kingdoms in the Runkle Prairie. Some royal capitals have been captured. Some are under attack. But the result is the same. With the City of Angels sitting on the battlefield, no kingdom-level force can resist the attack of Lin Yu's army, and they are basically captured in a short time. At this point, all the large and small forces in the Runkle Prairie have been wiped out. All that's left is to clear out the wild monsters on the grassland. This is also a carnival for the kingdom professionals in this area. Not all the kingdom professionals went to the floating island in another world, but many stayed. The levels of these kingdom professionals are generally not high, and they do not want to venture into other worlds for the time being. There are enough wild monsters in the Runkle Prairie for them to hunt. But what is certain is that when their levels rise, they will definitely not miss the national war in another world. Holy City. Lin Yu, who waited and waited until the goddess of nature and elves appeared, simply took Angelia to the city lord's mansion and exchanged the secrets of the laws. Since just now, he relied on his intuition to predict when big events would happen. He is even more eager to grasp the secret of the law of destiny. The law of fate allows him to predict the future to a certain extent. Plus the law of time. Whether it is a peek into the future or the past, it will become clearer. As the all-knowing Lord of Holy Light in the eyes of angels, it is impossible for him not to master the laws of destiny. So he worked extra hard. This exchange took place directly into the evening. The good news came first from the underground world. The army of fallen angels headed by Victoria captured the base camp of the Cyclops Empire. Most of the Cyclops were killed, and only a few were lucky enough to escape from the battlefield. In addition, the 12-winged fallen angel Priscilla also led an army of fallen angels to attack the base camp of the Eternal Kingdom. The Dark Elf Queen Nadia followed with an army of 2 million Dark Elves. With the cooperation of the Dark Elf Empire, this army of fallen angels attacks faster and more fiercely. In just a few hours, he swept across the entire Immortal Kingdom and wiped out hundreds of millions of undead creatures. At this time, the two armies of fallen angels had converged. The next war target is the base camp of the Evil Eye clan. As long as the Evil Empire is captured, Lin Yu will be equivalent to conquering the entire underground world, and all the resources here will be in his hands. Unfortunately, according to the rules of the floating island, the underground world can only be regarded as a large area, because its importance is far less than that of the surface world. Otherwise, Lin Yu's army has conquered 4 Empire-level forces in the underground world in succession, and coupled with the complete control of the Dark Forest, he now has the qualifications to become the island owner. Of course, this has little impact, Because it won't be long before the Lenkel Prairie, the land of plenty, and the 36 islands in the bay will be completely under his control. At this time, he could still directly become the master of an island. Let's talk about the two armies of angels marching in the surface world. The fallen angel army has already entered the battlefield first and began to clear out the islands in the Bay Area. Their straight-line attack target is the Dragon Clan's base camp, the Dragon's Nest. With the appearance of the fallen angel army and the news being passed to the island chat channel, those combat professionals and lord professionals located on the 36 islands in the bay also joined the kingdom of heaven one after another. It's impossible not to join. They are worried about being eliminated by those fallen angels. Compared with the beautiful and holy angels, the professionals are more afraid of the fallen angels under Lin Yu. Because fallen angels kill without blinking an eye. Facing the holy angel, they may still have a chance to stop from the brink. But if they encounter fallen angels, they will not even have a chance to beg for mercy, and will be directly devoured into mummies. So they all applied to join the kingdom of heaven as soon as possible. Only by becoming a citizen of the kingdom of heaven can we avoid death at the hands of fallen angels. At the same time, the newly joined kingdom professionals also gathered together, following the footsteps of the fallen angel army, and clearing out the 36 islands in the bay. And at an extremely terrifying speed, he headed towards the Central Dragon Island. The Central Dragon Island is the dragon's lair. There are the largest number of dragons living in the world. Here, you can not only see the 5-color evil dragon, but also the rare bright holy dragon, gold dragon, silver dragon, diamond dragon, as well as various metal dragons, gem dragons, etc. There are actually many types of dragons. And the individual combat power is extremely powerful. Especially those rare dragon species, which can be said to stand at the top of the mortal world. It is said that among the Dragon Clan there are also ultra-rare dragon species such as the Dragon of Destiny, the Dragon of Magic, the Dragon of Time, etc., which are born with the origin of the law. Not only can similar dragon species become gods easily. And once you become a god, you will have terrible divine power and become invincible with the same god. As for whether there is such an ultra-rare dragon species on the Central Dragon Island, we can only know it when we fight in. Another army of holy angels also successfully arrived on the battlefield in the land of plenty. Millions of holy angels guarding 20 angelic cities caused a sensation as soon as they appeared. All the Illuminati cultists on the battlefield cheered wildly, roaring with excitement. On the other hand, the army of the kingdom of Kilias and the main dragon army that came after a long journey were all dumbfounded. The expression of horror was completely displayed on his face. 73%. Chapter 426 Praise the Lord, praise the Holy Light. The Saint Lanlatu Plain is a vast fertile land. Located in the core territory of the Kingdom of Kilias. There are 3 very prosperous economic cities guarding here, with countless merchants and nobles, which can bring generous trade tax revenue to the Kingdom of Kilias every year. This fertile soil is planted with all kinds of spiritual plants, food, potions, flowers and more. However, most of the fertile lands were the territories of the nobles. Civilians occupy only a small part of it. In the local human society, the nobles have the highest status and control more than 90% of the society's resources. Civilians are at the bottom. There are also a large number of slaves, but their treatment is not even human. Whether in the kingdom of Kilias or in the other 2 human kingdoms, masters do not need to bear any responsibility for executing slaves. Of course, slaves were not cheap either. Especially slaves of foreign races. At this moment, the plains of St. Lanrathu have completely lost their previous prosperity. The vast fertile land is shrouded in the clouds of war. The millions of troops led by the Holy Sea of Light have all gathered here. Everywhere he went was a mess. Villages, towns, cities, and even the territories of nobles were all captured. Countless nobles of the Kilias kingdom fled to the vicinity of the 3 important cities with their subjects, knights, and professionals, and assembled an extremely large motley army in an attempt to fight against the Holy Sea of Light. They have to do this because the teleportation arrays in the 3 major cities have been blocked. The senior leaders of the kingdom of Kilias did not give them a chance to escape without a fight. As nobles and professionals in the kingdom, they must fight for the fate of the kingdom. Not only that, the kingdom of Kilias also dispatched its main army and legions stationed in other cities to prepare for a decisive battle with the Holy Sea of Light here. Behind the St. Lanlatu Plain is the royal capital of the kingdom of Kilias. This is already the last barrier. According to incomplete statistics, plus the various legions of the kingdom of Kilias, as well as the private soldiers of the nobles, and professionals in various fields, the size of the army gathered here has reached more than 15 million. It is fully twice the size of the Holy See's army. But even so, without the joining of the dragon army, the kingdom of Kilias still has no confidence that it can withstand the attack of the Holy Sea of Light. Because they are a miscellaneous army. And the army of the Holy Sea of Light are all elites. The Temple Knights Legion, the Golden Griffin Legion, the Light Paladin Legion, the Priest Legion, the Fanatic Believer Legion, the Punishment Legion, etc., are all fully armed and well trained. In addition, within the army camp of the Holy Sea of Light, there are also main armies from 2 other human kingdoms, all of which are ace troops. Whether it is war literacy, equipment level, or legion combat effectiveness. The army of the Holy Sea of Light far exceeds the motley army of the kingdom of Kiriasli. If the dragon army had not arrived on the battlefield, the defense line of the Kilias kingdom would definitely not be able to stop it, and the country would be destroyed in a short time. When the angelic army descended, the war had already broken out. There are figures fighting each other everywhere in the sky and on the ground. Combat skills, magic, and forbidden spells plowed the battlefield over and over again. Countless human corpses fell on the battlefield. It can only be described as a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. At an altitude of several thousand meters, there were also dense bodies falling down. It was a great chaos caused by all the powerful men from several forces. The total scale is in the millions. But it can be clearly seen that the camp of the Holy Sea of Light does not have an advantage, because there are 500,000 dragons participating in the battle in the kingdom of Kilias. Dragons are a race of advanced intelligence. Mastering the terrifying dragon breath and dragon language magic that is comparable to forbidden spells, its destructive power is extremely terrifying. In terms of defense, the dragon is also top-notch. Their dragon scales can withstand or significantly weaken magical attacks, as well as physical attacks. Even if the magic power in the body is exhausted and the dragon's breath dries up, the dragon can still tear the enemy into pieces through close combat. Putting aside the shortcomings of low reproductive capacity, dragons are simply perfect creatures. Standing at the pinnacle of the mortal world is worthy of its name. Even the strong men of light supported by fanatical beliefs are difficult to defeat. Every moment, a large number of strong men of light and 2 strong men from the human kingdom were killed, and countless flying mounts were forcibly torn apart by the giant dragon. Broken corpses mixed with blood fell from the sky. The blood mist dyed the sky red and soaked the earth. The scene is incredibly bloody. Until the angel army descends on the battlefield. Only then did the Holy See camp see hope of victory. Along with 20 angel cities and millions of angels flying in from the distant sky, the cheers from the Illuminati cultists on the battlefield suddenly resounded through the sky. It's an angel of the Lord. The angel army has arrived, bringing with it the legendary city of angels. Praise the Lord, praise the holy light. Countless Illuminati believers were cheering and roaring. They are beautiful and holy, holy angels. As soon as they arrived on the battlefield, there were a large number of angels of love waving their magic staffs and pouring bright light rain into the battlefield area. In an instant, countless dead Illuminati cultists and professionals from the 2 human kingdoms were all resurrected. The resurrection magic of the angel of love is simply a bug. As long as the soul does not completely disintegrate and turn into nothingness, the resurrection magic can bring the dead back to life. And it's a resurrection in its prime. It's much more powerful than the copycat version of the resurrection technique of the Holy Sea of Light. For a time, the entire battlefield was filled with the voice of, "Believe in the Lord and receive eternal life." A large number of professionals in the 2 human kingdoms became believers of the Lord of Holy Light at this moment. 73%. Chapter 427 What if we refuse? Compared to the cheers and excitement of the Light Holy Sea camp, the army of the kingdom of Kilias and the dragon army hovering in the sky were in panic. They worked hard for so long. He paid a huge price and killed a large number of strong men from the light camp. As a result, those angels resurrected all the enemies they killed as soon as they appeared. Where the hell are you going to reason with this? Angel, really a mythical race of angels. And there are also 20 legendary cities of war weapons, angels. Dragon God is on top. Why did the angel appear here? They have disappeared for tens of millions of years. Even if they return to the world, they should come to the battlefield of all worlds, not our little floating island world. Is there anything in this world that the angel family can covet? The Kilias professionals and dragons on the battlefield all had distorted expressions. The arrival of the angel army is no less than the god of death waving at them, and even more terrifying to them. Because he is an enemy of the angel clan, he doesn't even have the chance to become an undead and go to the underworld. Those light believers on the battlefield have inherited the glorious heritage of the angel family. To deal with heretics is to kill them first and then purify them. Or just tie it to the cross and grill it. Illuminati believe that fire can purify evil spirits. Just like the angel's holy flame can purify all evil and dark forces. Army of millions of angels. 20 cities of angels. There is no way to fight such a war. I finally know why the Holy See of Light ignored the peace agreement and ordered the believers and the two kingdoms to declare war on us. The angel family must be leading this war. Those angels want to conquer the world. The Holy See of Light serves them. Amidst waves of frightened discussions, countless strong men from the Kilia's kingdom began to retreat. The huge dragons also ran very fast. He was far away from the battlefield in the blink of an eye. They gathered together to form a huge dragon army. The unfolded dragon wings can be said to cover the sky and the sun. Such a scene is enough to frighten any native race in this world. Even the natural elf empire will be vigilant. But now, it is these giant dragons who feel guilty. Because what they have to face is an army of angels with a size of up to 4 million. They wanted to evacuate directly, but they didn't dare to act rashly. Angels have wings just like them. Moreover, there are angel cities suppressing the entire battlefield area. Whether they can successfully escape is a question. Therefore, we can only stay put and remain unchanged in response to all changes. Foolish King Kilias, you didn't even know who your real enemy was before you asked us for help. There was a giant dragon roaring, venting its dissatisfaction and fear. If they knew that the angels were standing behind the Holy See of Light, they would definitely not participate in this war. After all, the safety of one's own race is more important than the offensive and defensive alliance agreement signed with the Kingdom of Kilias. Of course, it's too late to say anything now. Come all come. It's not easy to leave. Just at this time. A giant dragon nearly 200 meters long flew out of the dragon army. It appears to be golden throughout. Every dragon scale is shining with golden light. The whole thing looks like it is made of gold and looks very cool. Dragon Clan is also divided into Orthodox Dragon Clan and Rare Dragon Clan. Rare dragons are extremely rare dragon species such as the Dragon of Destiny, the Dragon of Time, and the Giant Space Dragon. Their numbers account for less than 100,000th of the entire Dragon Clan. The Orthodox Dragon Clan is a relatively common dragon species, such as 5-color Evil Dragon, Metal Dragon, Gem Dragon, and so on. In the Orthodox Dragon Clan, there are two kinds of dragons with very high status. They are the Golden Dragon and the Silver Dragon. Basically, the patriarchs of the Dragon Clan in the past generations were selected from the Golden Dragon. If there is really no suitable candidate, it will be deferred to the Silver Dragon Clan. The glittering Golden Dragon in front of him is from the Golden Dragon Clan. He is an elder of the Dragon Clan and is also the commander-in-chief of this dragon army. It shouted in a thundering voice. The Angel Clan from another world, our Dragon Clan has no intention of starting a war with you. This is a world full of peace. If you can take the initiative to end this war, I believe that all races in the world will be grateful to you. After saying that, it waited anxiously for a reply from the angel army. After a moment, a cold voice resounded throughout the world. It is not difficult to end the war. Then a 12-winged angel wearing a white gold angel armor appeared. She has a beautiful face but a very indifferent expression. The 12 angel wings behind him exude bright holy light. It made her perfect figure even more holy and beautiful. She is the 12-winged angel Vivian, one of the commanders of the angel army. Before this war comes, I will give you an opportunity to embrace the holy light and believe in our Lord. Become a believer in our Lord, and you will receive eternal life and a bright future. The golden dragon's pupils shrank. What if we refuse? Hearing this, the 12-winged angel Vivian grabbed an angel sword burning with blazing flames from the void and said, "Believe in the Lord and you will have eternal life. If you don't believe in the Lord, you will die." Upon hearing this, the golden dragon's expression instantly distorted. In all these years, no one has ever dared to say such words to their dragon clan. The arrogant angels didn't give them any face to the dragon clan. After all, they are also a highly intelligent race. 73%. Chapter 428. The Lord said, "Light covers the world." In this case, the only way to resolve the dispute is through war. The golden dragon responded with a heavy voice. They are proud dragons and will never bow their heads to any racial force, even in the face of the mythical race angels. Pity. 12-winged angel Vivian shook her head with regret. Then he slashed towards the golden dragon with a sword. This sword made the golden dragon's scales stand up in fear. While using the power of law to protect itself, it shouted angrily, "Angel, you don't follow the rules." It is also preparing to return to the army camp and command the dragon army to fight. As a result, the 12-winged angel in front of him had no martial virtues, so he took action without saying a word. "It's not that easy to kill me." As he spoke, the golden dragon sprayed another blazing breath towards the 12-winged angel Vivian, intending to force Vivian back. It is a golden dragon at the peak demigod level. The strength is so strong that it is at the top of the floating island world. And the 12-winged angel Vivian is also at the peak of demigods, so killing it is not an easy task. However, the next moment, its expression became frightened. I saw the 12-winged angel Vivian directly ignoring its dragon breath, breaking through with force, and then slashed on its law shield with the angel's sword in her hand. There was a soft chirping sound. Its law shield was cut open. Then there's its head, its body. It was cut in half by the angel's sword and the sword light that burst out. As a golden dragon at the pinnacle of demigods, its head is as hard as a demigod, no less than a diamond dragon at the same level, but it is as fragile as tofu under the attack of the angel's sword. It only came with a scream, and the entire dragon body was chopped into two. The broken body, broken internal organs, mixed with the dazzling dragon's blood fell from the sky. This scene frightened all the professionals in the kingdom of Kilias, and also stunned the giant dragons behind them. Their peak demigod elder was actually killed with a sword. This makes them unbelievable. It was like seeing a ghost. No matter how strong the angel's fighting power is, there is no reason to be so strong. How do they know that Vivian is not an ordinary 12-winged angel? Before she came, she was a main god with great divine power, and her strength was much stronger than the new 12-winged angels of the same status. And even the golden dragon. In the same realm, they can only compete with 4-winged angels and 2-winged angels. As a veteran 12-winged angel, even if Vivian can't FK Secretary N, she still has no problem at all with a little big-bellied lizard. At this time, a dragon-shaped gray shadow flew out from the body of the golden dragon. Escape into the distance without hesitation. But Vivian was well prepared, and forcefully grabbed it from a distance of several hundred meters, sealing it into the soul light ball. This level of dead soul contains extremely huge soul origin. Great for leveling up fallen angels. It is also possible to cultivate immortal flowers. One more thing, the immortal flower bower and the big lowly sea tang have also moved to the floating island in another world, following the 12-winged seraph Mia to kill everyone. The Lord says that light will cover the world, and evil and dark heretics should be punished. The 12-winged angel Vivian stands high in the sky, pointing her sword at the dragon army in the distance and the professional army of the kingdom of Kilias. With a single order, the 20 angel cities fired in unison. This was just one round of shelling, and it easily tore apart all the defense lines of the enemy camp. Immediately afterwards, an army of millions of angels was dispatched. The angels' combat skills and dazzling magic illuminated the entire world. On the ground, the morale of the army of the Holy Sea of Light climbed to its peak, and every member of the light cult was like a fanatical lunatic, killing the enemy camp. The war started again, and it quickly came to a head. Before the arrival of the angel army, the Holy Sea of Light did not have an advantage on the battlefield in the strong area. But as the angel army joined the battle, the situation suddenly turned around. The battle flag of victory was firmly nailed to the camp of light. It was also at this time. A beautiful, soft, maternal figure appeared in the dark forest. She is none other than the goddess of nature and spirits. After leaving the natural elf empire, she did not go to the paradise kingdom immediately, but first walked around this floating island world. The Saint, Kabel snowfield in the far north. The Medusa empire in the distant deep sea. A deserted, inaccessible desert. The lake of silence exudes the aura of death everywhere. She visited them all. She even went to the underground world and saw from a distance the army of fallen angels headed by Priscilla who were clearing the underground world. She was surprised by the existence of fallen angels, having never seen such angels before. But that's not important. The reason why she traveled around the world was to find out what in this small floating island world was worthy of being conquered by the angel family, and even the Lord of Holy Light appeared. But the result made her very disappointed. She gained nothing. She wanted to ask about the rules of the world, but found that the guy ignored her at all. This made her a little dissatisfied. If the Lord of Holy Light hadn't been here, she would have given up the spirit of rules in this world. In that direction, I sensed a familiar breath. But not from the Lord of Light. The goddess of nature and elves frowned slightly. Just as she was about to leave for the holy city, an elegant and beautiful figure suddenly appeared out of thin air and stopped directly in front of her. The moment I saw this figure, the eyes of the goddess of nature and elves shrank sharply. Angelia, 74%. Chapter 429. Long time no see, Angelia. The eyes of the goddess of nature and elves are a simple golden color. Represents dignity. At this moment, it was shrinking violently. As the supreme deity of the natural gods, she not only stands at the pinnacle of the battlefield of all realms, but also personally experienced the battle between saints and demons tens of millions of years ago. On the battlefield, she fought side by side with the 18-winged archangel of the angel clan. In private, I also had a discussion with the 18-winged archangel. In terms of camp relations, the relationship between the natural elves and the angels is also good. Unlike the destruction god system, the undead god system, the evil god system, etc., they are in the opposite camp to the angel clan. There are these relationships. Naturally, she also knows the 18-winged archangels of the angel clan, and is very familiar with them. And the Angelia in front of her was one of them. And it's the most powerful one. There are legends that Angelia is the first 18-winged archangel created by the Lord of Holy Light, and this legend has even been confirmed. The goddess of nature and spirits did not expect that. After tens of millions of years, she met the 18-winged archangel again. And it's still in this small floating island world. This surprised her very much. The familiar sense she just sensed came from Angelia. At the same time, the appearance of Angelia can indirectly prove that the great Lord of Holy Light has really arrived. Angelia's arrival was obviously to serve the Lord of Holy Light. The most important is, the goddess of nature and elves also sensed a strange aura on Angelia's body. From male creatures. This made her confused on the spot. Unexpectedly, tens of millions of years later, the Lord of Holy Light would actually change his style. This was completely different from the figure in her memory. After all, the Lord of Holy Light, who ordered the gods of all realms to sweep away the demonic army in the void, only focused on the study of the avenue of the universe. He was supreme and ignored all things. Long time no see, Angelia. The goddess of nature and elves spoke first, with a smile slowly appearing on her face. Angelia glanced at her lightly, as if she had discovered something, and said, "In the past tens of millions of years, your natural god system seems to be doing very well in the battlefield of the world." The goddess of nature and elves said, "If the angel clan had not evacuated, I believe my natural system would be even stronger." "Yeah," Angelia said quietly. "Clovis still hasn't given up on suppressing your natural god system." The goddess of nature and elves shook her head and said, "You know, that guy has always been arrogant and domineering. Once you leave, the battlefield of the world will become the world of the Titan god system and the Dragon god system. These two races have always wanted to join forces to rule the universe." After a pause, the goddess of nature and elves continued with a smile. "Now that your angel clan has returned, I believe that the Titans and Dragons will converge and not be too arrogant." Angelia said, "Don't try to trick me, whether to return to the battlefield of all realms. My angel family has always only obeyed the will of my lord." Hearing this, the goddess of nature and elves suddenly felt her heart tighten. She can now be sure that the angel clan is ready to enter the battlefield of all realms again. After all, the Lord of Holy Light was so bored that he played a hegemony game with mortals, and was so radical that he let the natural elf empire choose life or death. This is also not the style of the Lord of Holy Light back then. The current Lord of Holy Light seems to be filled with the desire to war and conquer everything. This is not good news, because the power of the Lord of Holy Light is too strong. Back then, he almost brought down the Demon King of the Void Demon clan. There is no god in the battlefield of all realms who can rival the Demon Emperor of the Void. Once the Lord of Holy Light comes, it will surely sweep across all directions. At that time, there is no guarantee that her natural pantheon will have to change its banner and embrace the Holy Light. In fact, when the gods of all realms repelled the void demons and expelled them from the universe, some god kings of the gods were worried that the Lord of Holy Light would order the angel clan to conquer the universe and become the master of the universe. At that time, the Lord of Holy Light was so powerful that he intimidated all worlds. Even the Titan gods and the Dragon gods, who inherited the bloodline of the Titan god, had to lower their arrogant heads in front of the Lord of Holy Light. If the Lord of Holy Light had such an idea at that time, there would basically be no battlefield of all realms today. But what none of the gods in the world thought of was, after the war, the Lord of Holy Light disappeared very suddenly. Immediately afterwards, the army of the Angel clan also withdrew from the battlefield of all realms. It has not appeared again for tens of millions of years. This confused the gods collectively. What exactly happened, no one knows. Even the supreme god kings of their pantheon can't figure it out. But anyway, it's a good thing for them. After all, no one wants to have the holy sword of judgment floating above their head all the time. Without the intimidation of the Lord of Holy Light, they were freer. The goddess of nature and elves looked at Angelia and asked curiously, "What happened to your family of angels that caused you, the 18-winged archangel, to lower your status and become a little 12-winged angel?" Angelia gave her a sidelong glance. "If you want to ask me whether my power is still better than before, I can grant your wish." 74%. Chapter 430 Tens of millions of years of friendship. No need. The goddess of nature and elves decisively refused. Although she did wonder if there was something wrong with Angelili's character, so as to deduce whether the Lord of Holy Light and the angel family have also undergone major changes. However, she didn't want to be the one who stood out. What if Angelia simply sealed her own personality and was able to unseal it and return to her peak state at any time and at any time, then wouldn't she have sent herself to her doorstep? Even if you want to try, find someone else to try. For example, take the stubborn Titan clan. The goddess of nature and elves said with a smile, "We used to call each other sisters back then, how could we hurt our harmony? I was lucky enough to get news about His Majesty the Lord of Holy Light on the battlefield of all realms, so I came here to pay my respects." Angelia said quietly, "It's okay to meet, but don't reveal my identity." Hear this. The expression of the goddess of nature and elves was suddenly stunned. Immediately, his eyes bloomed, as if he had discovered something huge. Bless the universe. The problem is not with the angel family, but with the Lord of Holy Light. The goddess of nature and spirits instantly grasped the point. The Lord of Holy Light in the Holy City is indeed the Lord of Holy Light of the Angel Clan, but he is not the Lord of Holy Light of the Angel Clan, let alone the so-called incarnation. It is very likely that he is a reincarnation. And he doesn't have the memory of the Lord of Holy Light back then. He didn't even know Angelia, and he didn't know that she was an 18-winged archangel who stood at the top of the Angel Clan. Otherwise, Angelia would not have said such a thing. This discovery instantly ignited the fire of gossip in the heart of the goddess of nature and elves, making her itchy and wanting to know what was hidden behind it. "Of course, but you have to owe me a favor." The goddess of nature and spirits has a very bright smile. However, Angelia ignored her and said, "I am not begging you, but reminding you. If you want to see the natural world razed to the ground by my angel army, you can speak out." Angelia, the goddess of nature and elves, was immediately dissatisfied and said, "I am a supreme god king, with hundreds of billions of subordinate gods under my command. You have to give me some face." Angelia said, "I am not very interested in fighting. If you want to save face, I will let Victoria give it to you." Hearing this, the goddess of nature and elves trembled. Victoria has arrived too. She is spreading faith for our Lord in the underworld. Quote. The goddess of nature and elves stretched out her slender fingertips and rubbed her forehead. The 7 18-winged archangels of the Angel Clan have different personalities. As the eldest sister, Angelia is elegant, mature, gentle, and good at organizing. Victoria's character is impulsive, irritable, and good at war. As for Astia, she is introverted, taciturn, and good at research. Back when the Angel Clan was on the battlefield of all realms, the goddesses of nature and elves often sparred martial arts with Victoria, and they fought countless times with their fingers. To be honest, I don't want to see her. Although she still owes me a supreme artifact. Mentioning that supreme artifact, the goddess of nature and elves felt her heart aching. In her natural world, there is a world tree that is unique in the universe. That is the mother tree of all elven mother trees. It was also with the help of the world tree that she created a family of natural elves. However, due to an unexpected incident, her world tree was slashed by Victoria with a sword, and her origin was severely damaged. At that time, Victoria promised to give her a supreme artifact as compensation. The results have not yet materialized. Even after tens of millions of years, the goddess of nature and elves still feels aggrieved every time she sees the sword mark on the world tree. Correct. The goddess of nature and elves suddenly remembered something and asked, I saw a group of black-winged angels in the underground world, exuding an extremely evil and dark aura, no less than the void demons back then. What happened to them? This is not a secret that must be kept. Sooner or later it will spread to the battlefields of all realms, so Angelia did not hide it and said, "They are fallen angels, drowning in the desire for power." Fallen angel. The goddess of nature and elves was immediately horrified and said, "Your angel clan will actually be divided. Every angel is a believer in the Lord of Holy Light, and their faith level has reached the highest level of the Holy Spirit. They were born with only one mission, which is to serve the Lord of Holy Light. If there is any race in this universe that is the most united, it must be the angel race." That's why the goddess of nature and elves was so surprised. Unexpectedly, there will be two opposing factions of light and darkness in the angel clan. Angelia shook her head, said he didn't want to talk about the issue. However, the goddess of nature and elves refused to give up and said, "You just said that Victoria is also in the underground world. Don't you tell me that she has also fallen." Angelia gave her a sidelong glance. "I can call her back and let her tell you personally." "Forget it, I don't want to see her before returning to the battlefield of all realms." The goddess of nature and spirits refused again. When not corrupted, Victoria gives her Yggdrasil a sword. Now that she has fallen into the camp of evil and darkness, why not uproot her world tree? It's really hard to imagine. The Lord of Holy Light would actually tolerate the existence of fallen angels. However, when she thought about the current identity of the Lord of Holy Light and the strange aura that appeared on Angelia's body, she felt that all this seemed excusable. If it were the Lord of Holy Light back then, the fallen angels would have been purified long ago. That existence cannot tolerate a grain of sand in its eyes. He is just like the rigid laws of the Tao, without selfish desires or emotions. 74%. Chapter 431. Just be good. Arrive outside the holy city. The goddess of nature and spirits did not come straight into the city from the sky. Instead, he walked through the city gate and walked into the city step by step. Today's holy city has become very prosperous, with a permanent population of more than 10 million, not including the kingdom's various arms and legions. The more than 10 million permanent residents are all of ordinary races. They do not have strong combat effectiveness. His daily job is to run the logistics of Heaven Kingdom and provide Lin Yu with the power of faith. Angelia, the goddess of nature and elves, whispered to Secretary N, who was leading the way, and asked, "What kind of character does the Lord of Holy Light of this era have?" Secretary N frowned slightly and said firmly, "My Lord is eternal, immortal, and will always be the same person. How can we say that there is an era?" The goddess of nature and elves said, dissatisfied, "You know what I mean." Angelia said, "Just be good." The goddess of nature and spirits is silent. But I also understand what Angelia means, and she needs to maintain due respect. She certainly won't forget this. Even the Titan King Cronus, who had no dealings with the angel clan, still had to show some respect in front of the Lord of Holy Light. Even if the Lord of Holy Light is really reincarnated and has now become immortal, that cannot be disrespected or even blasphemed by anyone else. After all, she can think with her toes. A supreme being like the Lord of Holy Light will definitely leave behind a terrifying backhand even if he reincarnates. This backup plan is definitely not as simple as having the angel clan and 1 or 2 18-winged archangels protect the way. Maybe in the blink of an eye, the Lord of Holy Light will be resurrected with full health. Therefore, respect is a must. She didn't want to face the Lord of Holy Light after being resurrected with full blood. My mind was racing. The goddess of nature and elves ignored the outside world and followed Angelia into the luxurious city lord's mansion. In the spacious hall, she saw the figure sitting on the throne at the top of the hall. A young human being with 19 turns of the Wheel of Life, a late-stage demigod, master of the origins of laws with 37 different attributes, and a cultivation time of less than 20 days. The goddess of nature and elves understood Lin Yu's message at a glance. It is more accurate than checking the household registration book. There are two terrifying forces within this figure's body. One is the legendary power of creation, which is the power exclusive to the Lord of Holy Light. Another one, from the Origin Scepter. The Scepter of Origin, the natal super artifact of the Lord of Holy Light, was used to create the angel race. The goddess of nature and spirits took a deep breath. Completely solid, the figure in front of him is the Lord of Holy Light. Because except for the Lord of Holy Light, no one has the qualifications and the courage to incorporate the Origin Scepter into his body, not even the 18-winged archangels of the angel clan. As for the power of creation, there is no need to explain too much. Without hesitation, the goddess of nature and elves immediately stepped forward, saluted the figure on the throne with the highest etiquette of the natural god system, and said respectfully, "My dear Lord of Holy Light, I am able to see you here. Heloise's honor. Your brilliance will remain as dazzling as ever." Heloise. It is the true name of the deity of the goddess of nature and spirits. The true names of gods are different from the names of mortals. The true name of a god contains mysterious power. Creatures whose personalities are too different cannot call the great being by its true name. Because once you call, you will be sensed by the great being, who will then lower your mind to obliterate the blasphemer. The names of gods are generally based on their priesthood. The goddess of nature and elves is on the same level as Angelia, and they have a really good relationship, so they call her by her real name. Another problem is, no one in the universe knows the true name of the Lord of Holy Light. At this moment, Lin Yu, who was sitting on the throne, was also looking at the goddess of nature and elves in the hall. The first feeling is beauty. Flawless natural beauty. Her face was impeccably refined. The golden eyes have a dreamy brilliance like stars. Her figure also belongs to the top 9-headed body. Every part is presented in perfect golden proportion. The temperament on her body is elegant, quiet, and pure, with a sense of tolerance that is like nature, and it also makes Lin Yu feel like she wants to be included in her. In addition, it is noble. Every inch of her skin seemed to be blooming with divine light. Like a goddess in mythology, one must not be blasphemed. One more word, the fog that shrouded the face of the goddess of nature and elves has dissipated. In front of the Lord of Holy Light, the goddess of nature and elves no longer needs to remain mysterious, revealing her true appearance that is difficult for even gods to glimpse. After all, how mysterious can the Lord of Holy Light be? So far, no one knows the origin of the Lord of Holy Light. There are legends that this universe was created by the Lord of Holy Light. There are also legends that the Lord of Holy Light was born together with this universe, and that he gave birth to the true spirit in chaos. But which one is correct, no one knows. Lin Yu opened his mouth on the throne. But suddenly I realized that I didn't know what to say. After all, the person in front of him is the supreme god standing on the battlefield of all realms. He is immortal at the demigod level and has nothing in common with such a big shot. After a long silence, Lin Yu pretended to be profound and said, "Tens of millions of years have passed. How are you, the natural elves, doing on the battlefield of all realms?" The goddess of nature and elves looked stunned. This sentence feels a bit familiar. Then he quickly and respectfully replied, "Thank you for your concern, Your Majesty, we are doing well." Lin Yu nodded. "Well, that's good. Goddess of nature and elves. 74%. Chapter 432 Lin Yu, what did you say?" All of a sudden, the main hall of the city lord's mansion was in a state of silence. The atmosphere was awkward. Lin Yu is trying to find a topic to have a deeper communication with this goddess of nature and spirits. The goddess of nature and spirits is also looking for a topic. If it were the Lord of Holy Light tens of millions of years ago, she would have already started talking, for example, asking for advice on the laws and secrets of the God King level. The Supreme God King is not the pinnacle of the realm of law. Above the Supreme God King, there is also a terrifying existence like the Lord of Holy Light. Really covering the sky with one hand. Compared to the power of the Lord of Holy Light, the Supreme God King is nothing. In that battle that year, Zizi and the elf goddess saw with their own eyes that the Lord of Holy Light crushed a supreme god from the Void Demon clan camp to death with one hand, just like squeezing a chicken to death. It can be seen from this. How terrifying is the power of the Lord of Holy Light. Anyone who can get the guidance of the Lord of Holy Light is a great opportunity for the goddess of nature and elves, and the benefits are far greater than getting a supreme artifact from Victoria. But the problem is, she can't ask. The current Lord of Holy Light not only has no memory of the past, but even his own realm is only at the demigod level. It was impossible to give her any advice. On the contrary, she can point out the rules of the Lord of Holy Light at the demigod level. If Lin Yu knew about this idea of the goddess of nature and elves, he would definitely be very happy. That's what he lacks now. Seeing that the world is about to be conquered by his angel army, the floating island numbered 018439 cannot last long. He will soon be able to enter the battlefield of all realms and become a god. However, now, the number of origins of laws he has mastered is only 37. In a few days, he mastered the origin of more than 30 laws with different attributes, which is actually quite amazing. But Lin Yu is still not satisfied. He wants to master hundreds, or even more, of the origins of laws like Secretary N. The more sources of laws you master, when he becomes a god in the future, his power will become even more powerful. And after becoming a god, you will gain a higher status. Unfortunately, such thoughts were quickly thrown away by the goddess of nature and elves. No matter how awesome she is, she doesn't dare to give advice to the Lord of Holy Light. If she really wanted to do this, the 718-winged archangels from the angel clan would definitely go berserk. It would be easy to press her to the ground and beat her up. So the final result is, the goddess of nature and elves missed a good opportunity to get closer to the Lord of Holy Light. Lin Yu himself also missed a big opportunity. In the end, the sensible secretary and broke the awkward atmosphere in the hall. A pair of soft eyes fell on the goddess of nature and elves, and said, "My lord, I believe that Heloise came to the lower world this time simply to pay homage to you. As for the war between us and the natural elf empire, she probably won't ask." The eyebrows of the goddess of nature and elves twitched slightly. Angelia's, "Your Majesty," made her instinctively feel horrified. She quickly said, "The elves in the natural elf empire are lucky to be able to attach themselves to the Lord of Holy Light and become believers of the Holy Light. My natural god system and the angel clan have always had a friendly relationship. I will never cause the Lord of Holy Light's displeasure because of this trivial matter." On the throne, Lin Yu said with a bright smile, "Indeed, this is just a small floating island world. In the future, we will have more opportunities for contact and communication in the battlefield of all realms. This is something I've been looking forward to for a long time." The goddess of nature and elves said with a solemn expression, "I will greet your Majesty's arrival on the battlefield of all realms." The words paused slightly. The goddess of nature and elves suddenly asked, "My dear Lord of Holy Light, does your return indicate that the void demon race will invade our universe again?" Although she knew that the current Lord of Holy Light had no way to give her the answer. But she still couldn't help but ask. After all, the sudden appearance of the Lord of Holy Light, who had disappeared for tens of millions of years, was a big event in the entire battlefield of all realms, enough to cause a sensation in all realms of the universe. The last time the Lord of Holy Light came, the void demons invaded the universe. What about this time? She wanted to find out the secret behind it. Even if she couldn't get the answer from the Lord of Holy Light this time, she would still have to find a way to investigate it after she returned. Lin Yu sighed, after hearing the words of the goddess of nature and elves. Naturally, he didn't know how to answer. Will the Void Demon clan make a comeback? Where does he know where to go? For this matter, you have to ask the Lord of Holy Light tens of millions of years ago. Just when Lin Yu was about to find some words to excuse her, his expression changed slightly. His eyes became indifferent. He looked down at the goddess of nature and elves in the hall, and then slowly said, "Chaos is shaking, and the universe is stacked." The ancient portal was forced to open, alternating illusion and reality. The void, omnix, eternity, tear open the sky, reflecting the awakening of the holy angel. "Heloise, are you sure you're ready?" Lin Yu's voice at this time was low and rigid, without any emotion. Above the main hall, Angelia and the goddess of nature and elves all changed their expressions. "My lord," Angelia's voice trembled. A pair of golden eyes looked at Lin Yu, who was sitting on the throne. Heloise, the goddess of nature and elves, almost knelt on the ground, her body shaking uncontrollably. She took a deep breath and asked with a tone full of reverence, "Your Majesty, the Lord of Holy Light, can you be more specific?" Lin Yu glanced at her, frowned and said, "What did you say?" Goddess of nature and elves. 74%. Chapter 433. Lin Yu expressed panic. The goddess of nature and spirits left very hastily. After confirming that Lin Yu had not deceived her, she decisively said goodbye and left. She didn't even return to the Nature Elf Empire. After exiting the City Lord's palace, he directly tore apart the barriers of world rules and returned to the battlefield of all realms. First, she didn't want to meet the fallen Victoria. The second is because she was frightened by Lin Yu's words. Although she could not fully understand what the Lord of Holy Light meant, this did not prevent her from having a glimpse of a terrible war that was coming. This war will sweep across the entire universe. It will be even more tragic than the war between saints and demons tens of millions of years ago. If not done well, the order of the universe will be overturned because of this war. The void, omnix, eternity, tear open the sky, reflecting the awakening of the holy angel. The void should be the void demon clan. Omnic, eternity. Which side are you referring to? Who is the holy angel? There are also ancient portals that were forced to open. Where does this portal stand? Is it the legendary Gate of Origin? Returning to the vast natural world, Heloise, the goddess of nature and elves, was still thinking about the words spoken by the Lord of Holy Light. And soon, her back was soaked with cold sweat. Our universe is about to suffer a horrific invasion. Even the Lord of Holy Light has no confidence to resist it. This is the conjecture of the goddess of nature and elves. And she was very sure that her guess was correct. Why did the Lord of Holy Light reincarnate? The Lord of Holy Light must have peeked into the future and knew that when the great catastrophe came again, it would be difficult to redeem the universe with his power back then, so he chose to reincarnate and rebuild. In order to obtain more powerful power. As for why he was reincarnated after tens of millions of years. During these tens of millions of years, where did the Lord of Holy Light go and what did he do? The goddess of nature and spirits cannot imagine. The words of the Lord of Holy Light appeared again and again in the mind of the goddess of nature and elves. Especially the sentence, Heloise, are you sure you are ready? It would make her feel cold every time it came up. In this sentence, she even felt a breath of death envelope her. Gods are immortal beings, but this does not mean that gods cannot die. In the great battle between saints and demons, billions of gods fell, and countless true spirits were extinguished. In a battle of this level, even the supreme god king dare not say that he will definitely survive. But what is certain is that the goddess of nature and spirits does not want to die. She also has a great goal. That is to break through the realm of the supreme god king and become an existence like the Lord of Holy Light. Therefore, after returning to the natural world, the first thing she did was to gather all the gods under her command into her god world, such as the famous flame goddess, ocean goddess, etc. She wants to prepare for the future war. In addition, she also contacted the goddess of light, the goddess of sun radiance, the goddess of moonlight and hunting, the goddess of judgment and other supreme gods. These supreme goddesses all belong to the camp of the angel clan. She informed these supreme goddesses of the Lord of Holy Light's return to the world, and at the same time told the Lord of Holy Light's words exactly as they were. The reason for doing this. It was because of the sense of death crisis that enveloped her that she couldn't do it alone. You must hug the thigh of the Lord of Holy Light. Chaos oscillates, and the universe stacks up. Even the Lord of Holy Light does not have much confidence that he can survive this upcoming catastrophe. Without the protection of the Lord of Holy Light, wouldn't it be certain to die? Let the Titans do the hard work. Just like Angelia said, she just needs to be nice. Have I ever said such a thing? In the main hall of the City Lord's mansion, Lin Yu looked at the beautiful and elegant secretary and with a dull expression. Yes, my lord, Angelia nodded respectfully. This is what you said yourself, but neither I nor the goddess of nature and elves can fully understand the hidden meaning of your words. She knows more than the goddess of nature and spirits. For example, the awakening of the holy angels most likely refers to the two chaos holy angels created by the Lord of Holy Light that even the 18-winged archangels have never seen before, and will be revived in the future. As for the others, she was not able to understand them all. Lin Yu looked confused, but soon, his expression darkened. At this moment, he felt as creepy as the goddess of nature and elves. What frightened him was not the terrible war those words pointed to, but the fact that the old guy, the Lord of Holy Light, borrowed his body to say these words. During this process, he didn't even have any consciousness himself. This feeling was as if there was a terrifying creature hiding in his body that might occupy his consciousness and seize his body at any time. Who won't panic if you leave it alone? My lord. Angelia and Lin Yu have a good connection. She understood why Lin Yu's expression suddenly changed, and she also knew what he was worried about. Don't worry, you are the Lord of Holy Light, and the Lord of Holy Light is you. When you return to your peak, you will only revive your memory, not other consciousnesses and souls. You are all alone. 74%. Chapter 434 The soul and the true spirit are the essence. Lin Yu can understand what Angelia means. But his mood still didn't get better. From Angelia's perspective, Lin Yu is the Lord of Holy Light, and the Lord of Holy Light is Lin Yu. Whether his memory is restored now or in the future, Lin Yu is the Lord of Holy Light. His soul will not be invaded. Consciousness is still your own consciousness. Because he is himself. There will be no second consciousness or second soul emerging. From beginning to end, Lin Yu had only one consciousness. Whether it was the events experienced during this period, or the ordering of the angel clan to defeat the invasion of the void demon army tens of millions of years ago, or even the stripping of the godhead and divinity, this was all done by Lin Yu himself. He just lacks the previous memory. Even if the memory is restored, it will not affect anything. But from Lin Yu's perspective, this problem is big. The memory of the Lord of Holy Light, that old guy, is so vast. Once he is revived, his memory of the past 20 years will only be a drop of water in the ocean. Will he still be himself then? Once his subjective consciousness chooses to stand in the memory of the Lord of Holy Light, that old guy, can he still exist now? Lin Yu said to himself, if the memory recovers, I may not be Lin Yu. Angelia said, Great Lord, you are an eternal existence. Whether it is the memory of the Lord of Holy Light or your current memory, it is your experience in this life. Certain gods will condense into various incarnations and experience different lives in different worlds. Until the end, take back these incarnations. Among those incarnations, there are also different memories. But this does not mean that those gods have become their own incarnations, they are still themselves. The soul and the true spirit are the essence. As long as you are firm in your subjective ideas, you can become whoever you want to be. You have a point. Lin Yu seemed to have thought of something, and a smile suddenly appeared on his handsome cheeks, and he said, as long as I can stand firm, the memory of the Lord of Holy Light will be a novel to me. No matter how realistic and fascinating the novel is, it is ultimately illusory. Perhaps this is the alternation between fantasy and reality. This little fresh kid like me will never become that old guy. Quote. Angelia was stunned for half a second. Then he quickly lowered his head. The great Lord of Holy Light cursed himself, but she just pretended not to hear him. Here, Lin Yu's inner world suddenly became clear. He stretched himself out and felt enlightened all over. Then he suddenly said with dissatisfaction, Heloise is also stingy. She didn't know how to bring some gifts when she came to see me. Even if she leaves some of the origins of the laws, it would be great. That's what I'm missing right now. Without waiting for Angelia to speak, he took Secretary Anne's little hand and walked toward the backyard of the city lord's mansion. As he walked, he said, so, it is better to rely on others than to rely on yourself. Let's continue to work hard. Angelia hummed lightly. She followed Lin Yu with brisk steps. The 12 angel wings behind him exude dazzling light. This night, Lin Yu gained a lot. Under Secretary Anne's perfect assistance, selfless dedication, and careful guidance, and equipped with precious law stones, Lin Yu mastered the origin of more than 20 laws with different attributes in one night. It can be said to be rapid progress. Since then, the number of law origins Lin Yu has mastered has reached 64. It's not far away from breaking through 100. As long as he works hard enough, it will only take 2 or 3 days. When he woke up early in the morning, Lin Yu received another good news from several war zones. In the dark underground world, the army of fallen angels led by Victoria and Priscilla successfully captured the base camp of the Evil Eye Empire. Until now, 5 Empire-level evil forces. Except for the Dark Elf Empire, all other 4 forces were wiped out. Now, the army of fallen angels is clearing out other strongholds of evil forces, and it is expected that this war will be completely ended soon. All major cities and tribes in the Dark Elf Empire have been destroyed. Some Dark Elves came to the Holy City with the help of the teleportation array. When the war ends, other Dark Elves headed by the Dark Elf Queen Nadia will also be teleported over and settle down in the Holy City from then on. Over there in the Land of Plenty, the army of holy angels led the army of the Holy Sea of Light and won the war. A total of 500,000 giant dragons, dying to death, surrendering and surrendering. No one escapes. After the destruction of the Dragon Legion, the army camp of the Kingdom of Kilias also collapsed, and all surviving enemy troops laid down their weapons and surrendered. Then, the angel army attacked the capital of the Kingdom of Kilias. But no war broke out. Because when the angel army arrived, the king of the Kingdom of Kilias had already summoned the kingdom's senior officials and nobles to gather outside the city to welcome the arrival of the angel army. They did not struggle and simply surrendered as a nation. Compared with the destruction of the kingdom and being purified by the holy flame, they chose to bow their heads to the angel army and embrace the holy light, which was not so difficult to accept. After all, even the dragon army was defeated. At the same time, the Holy Sea of Light and 2 other human kingdoms also announced that they would join the Kingdom of Heaven and become its affiliated forces. This is a very necessary process. Because only in this way can they become subjects of the kingdom under Lin Yu and gain the ability to kill enemies and obtain source energy rewards. Even on the battlefield of all realms, he can be recognized. Since then, Fengrao region has been completely owned by Lin Yu. 75%. Chapter 435 550 million gold coins. 36 islands in the bay are tens of thousands of kilometers away. The war pace of the fallen angel army never stops. Even at night, it is advancing rapidly. The undead creatures that haunt the night simply cannot resist the footsteps of the army of fallen angels. Everything has been reduced to the experience of the fallen angels. For fallen angels, the benefits of killing undead creatures are higher than killing wild monsters. Because the soul origins of undead creatures are relatively more numerous and more pure. Devouring the soul origin of undead creatures can bring huge benefits to fallen angels. In just one night, the fallen angel army captured at least 7 islands of different sizes, killing hundreds of millions of undead creatures, wild monsters, and native intelligent creatures on the islands. On the 36 islands in the bay, there are a large number of sub-dragon monsters. For example, bipedal dragon, two-headed dragon, earth dragon, black iron spine dragon, dragon eagle, and so on. The sub-dragon monster is not a pure dragon. It is equivalent to a hybrid species between a dragon and other creatures. Its overall strength is much stronger than ordinary wild monsters. On land, there are not many worm monsters. But in the 36 islands in the bay, there are so many of them that it's incredible. When the professionals came to these islands, the sub-dragon monsters also caused a lot of casualties to them. Before the arrival of the fallen angel army, dragon monsters were also a nightmare for professionals. Even the Lord professionals who own armies do not want to encounter the sub-dragon monster. However, with the arrival of the army of fallen angels, these sub-dragon monsters will no longer be strong. As long as you encounter them, they will inevitably turn into mummies that have been devoured by blood and souls. The fallen angel army's war plan today is to attack Central Dragon Island, the base camp of the Dragon Clan. Capture the Central Dragon Island and destroy the dragon nest. The remaining islands can be cleared later. At the same time. A floating island in another world. After a whole day of clearing out, the Holy Angel Army and the kingdom's top military force have almost cleared the entire 3 areas. For foreign professionals such as Shaori and Xiaobangxi on the floating island in another world, this kind of attack speed is terrifying. But for the kingdom's army, it is not fast at all. After all, the total size of the kingdom's army reaches more than 10 million. This includes an army of 4 million angels and an army of more than 6 million top-level soldiers. Looking at other war zones, only the size of the kingdom's army on the Lenkel Prairie can compare. But the overall war strength is far inferior to that of the kingdom's army in the Runkel Prairie. Not to mention, in addition to the angel army and the top-level army, there are millions of kingdom professionals who have entered the floating island in another world. The total scale is as high as 20 million. Such a huge army did not clear out the entire 3 areas. It was really a bit slow. The reason, it is the world rules of the floating island in another world that are desperate. In order to destroy Lin Yu's kingdom army, it even dispatched local forces from other regions. Even under its dominance, the native power races of other worlds and foreign professionals such as Shaori and Xiaobangxi temporarily joined forces. Lin Yu's kingdom army is now at war with the power of the entire other world. It's normal for progress to be slow. But as long as we can win a big battle, the remaining areas will be much easier to solve. Lin Yu also knew about this news. He planned to send more angelic legions over later. Completely shatter the illusion of another world. Hall of Lords. Lin Yu was counting the trophies sent back from various armies with Angelia, 10-winged angel Elena, Saint of Light Tiffany and others. After selling equipment, blueprints and other trophies. And after opening all the stronghold treasure chests, Lin Yu received more than 500 million gold coins. To be more precise, it was more than 547 million, which once again broke the revenue record. Nearly 550 million gold coins. 190 large-scale angel legions can be summoned. The total number of angels is more than 9.7 million. When calculating this data, even if Lin Yu was mentally prepared, he couldn't help but take a breath, and his handsome face was filled with a shocked expression. Summon an army of tens of millions of angels at once. What is this concept? The total number of foreign professionals on the floating island numbered 018439 is only over 10 million. In other words, Lin Yu only needed 2 days to summon more angels than the total number of those foreign professionals. At this summoning speed, how could that floating island defeat his army of angels? Even if the other floating islands are integrated together and fight Lin Yu's army, the final winner will still be Lin Yu. With the consumption of nearly 500 million gold coins, The summoned black hole opened, and densely packed beautiful figures flew out of the black hole. In the blink of an eye, one after another, fully armed angel armies appeared inside and outside the Lord's Hall. The sacred camp and the fallen camp interfere with each other and are clearly distinct. What they have in common is that they are all enthusiastic believers in Lin Yu. They have the strongest faith and loyalty to Lin Yu, the Lord of Holy Light. 1. 75%. Chapter 436 Medium-sized City of Angels. Soon, an army of nearly 10 million angels was summoned. It's still a 2-to-1 ratio. There are more than 6 million holy angels. There are more than 3 million fallen angels. In addition to angels, there are also a large number of three-headed hell dogs and giant monsters such as the Abyss Dragon. Especially the Abyss demonic dragons, all of them are at the demigod level. On the battlefield of all realms, the demigod level Abyss dragons might just be little black lizards. But in the floating island world, they are terrifying creatures standing at the top. At the same level, giant dragons would have to be torn into pieces by them. The combat power of the Abyss demonic dragon is equivalent to that of an ultra-rare dragon species among the dragon clan. It's not something that ordinary dragons can compare to. Including the Abyss dragons summoned this time, the total number of Abyss dragons under Lin Yu's command has successfully exceeded 100. In other words, more than 100 demigod-level powerful men have been prostituted in vain. This is a very good deal. As usual, Lin Yu dispatched the two armies of angels respectively. The army of holy angels went to the floating island in another world. Since then, the total size of the holy angel army fighting on the floating island in another world has directly exceeded 10 million. On the other side, an army of more than 3 million fallen angels was dispatched to the 36 islands in the bay. But it is not to destroy the dragon clan, but to occupy the entire region faster. After the two armies of angels left, Lin Yu took Angelia and others to a blank area in the city. As the golden drawings disappeared from his hand, lush dark elf mother trees appeared in front of him. Most of these dark elf military building drawings were revealed by destroying the cities and tribes of the Dark Elf Empire, and a few were obtained by opening stronghold treasure chests. The total number is 39, plus the original Dark Elf mother tree he had before. He now owns a total of 40 top-level military buildings that can breed dark elves. Then borrow the reserved territorial building upgrade drawings to upgrade all these newly built Dark Elf mother trees to the full 9th level. From then on, he could prostitute 400,000 Dark Elves of different professions every day. Before the collapse of the Dark Elf Empire, the Dark Elf clan had a large number of mother trees, but the number of Dark Elf they gave birth to every day could not compare to Lin Yu's 40 Dark Elf military buildings. This is the power of the floating island of all realms. Of course, it has nothing to do with the floating island he is on. Mainly the world rules from the battlefield of all realms. Just as the world rules of floating island say, it is just a wage earner who works overtime without overtime pay. The world rules of 10,000 realms battlefield are the boss and govern all floating islands. After summoning 10,000 angels from the angel reincarnation pool again, Lin Yu said to Angelia, "If you have nothing to do, let's go to Dragon Island. I suddenly have a premonition that a war of even greater scale is about to come." As per normal conditions, he should be dragging secretary into exchange rules now. But because he worked too hard last night and gained too much, he needed to digest it. It is the so-called combination of work and rest. Naturally, Angelia would not raise objections to Lin Yu's instructions. Immediately, the group of people drove up City of Angels and flew towards the 36 islands in the bay. Say one more thing. The City of Angels controlled by Lin Yu and others is a medium-sized City of Angels just built by the Craftsman Angels. From yesterday to now, the Craftsman Angels have built more than a dozen angel cities. Except for this medium-sized angel city, the others are small angel cities. Those small angel cities also entered the floating island in another world with the newly summoned army of holy angels. Until now, the number of angel cities fighting on floating islands in other worlds has also reached 17. Medium-sized City of Angels is also in the shape of a square, with a length and breadth of 108,000 meters. It is much larger than small-sized City of Angels and is not at the same level. It comes standard with 20 large-scale angel legions, carrying 1 million angels. If it is squeezed, it will not be a problem to carry 3 to 5 million angels. In terms of combat strength, the tens of thousands of magic energy cannons it carries can easily kill demigods. If the strongest attack method is used, the true god will die even if he comes. To put it more directly, As long as there is enough energy, this medium-sized angel city can easily destroy the entire floating island world. Its destructive power is strong enough to tear the floating island into pieces. In addition, this is also driven by the energy of the magic core, and the controller has not reached the peak. If it is driven by a divine stone and the person who controls it has peak power, then its war strength will be even more terrifying, and it is completely normal for it to directly increase by 1,000 times. The controller of medium-sized Angel City should theoretically be a 14-winged angel. It's a pity that Lin Yu currently has no 14-winged angels under his command. So he left it directly under the control of Secretary N. Soon, this medium-sized city of angels flew away from the holy city, smashing through the thick clouds and heading towards the 36 islands in the southeastern bay. It was also at this time. In the remote deep sea area, huge waves are rolling and heavy rain is pouring. And among the huge waves, there were countless giant figures. It has to be said that Lin Yu's premonition is getting more and more accurate. This is thanks to Secretary Anne's personal guidance. 75%. Chapter 437 Queen Medusa and the Sea Tribe Army. Endless sea area. Purple thunder and lightning struck down horizontally, tearing the sky into pieces. Below, the waves surged into the sky and giant beasts roared. The scene was extremely terrifying, as if it was about to crush the world. Among the rolling waves, there are densely packed figures. Most of them are in the form of monsters, and they are all sea beasts. The races include giant sharks, octopus, crabs, swordfish, etc. Without exception, they are all ferocious-looking, abnormal sea creatures. At this moment, they form an extremely large army. Riding the waves, the sea surface is rough and there are undercurrents on the bottom of the sea. It can be seen that there are more giant sea beasts under the sea water. At a glance, it is simply overwhelming. The difference is that in front of this army of giant sea beasts are exquisite and gorgeous warships, which travel freely through the underwater world like submarines. The battleship was not sealed. There were still a large number of figures standing on the deck. From a distance, they look very similar to the Nagas under Lin Yu. They are all human beings with snake tails. But if you look closely, you will find that they are not the same as the Naga family. Their tails are thicker. The overall body shape is also a few sizes larger than Naga. Their hair is composed of small snakes of different colors. It looks very weird, and they are the extremely mysterious top race in the floating island world, the Medusa clan. In addition to Medusa, there are many creatures on the deck that look just like humans, as well as some creatures with human fish tails, human octopus tails, etc. These creatures were all transformed from powerful sea beasts. Of course, there are also purebred mermaids. On land, mermaids are known as sirens. Their singing is said to be extremely seductive. His favorite thing to do is to appear offshore and confuse the fishermen who make a living by fishing. But not for reproduction, let alone love, but to eat it. Mermaids also hunt sea beasts. Regardless of whether it is beautiful or not, once it falls into their hands, it will basically become a delicious meal. Her Majesty the Queen, on the deck of one of the battleships. A Medusa who looked like a beautiful woman said respectfully to Queen Medusa, who was wearing an exquisite crown on her head, "In about 2 hours, our army will be able to enter the waters of the 36 islands in the Gulf." Queen Medusa's snake hair is not colorful, but pure gold. A snake's hair looks like it is made of gold. Her eyes also have golden vertical pupils, very similar to snake eyes. In her hand, she holds a pure golden trident, which is the symbol of power of the Medusa Empire and the entire sea tribe. Its name is the Poseidon Trident. This is an artifact. It was governed by Queen Medusa throughout the ages. Its most powerful ability is that it can control the sea clan and sea beasts that are not very intelligent. It is precisely because of it that the Medusa Empire can rule the deep sea and make all sea races and sea beasts surrender. Queen Medusa said with an indifferent expression, "Order the army to prepare for landing on the island." "As you command, Your Majesty the Queen." Medusa, who was as beautiful as a woman, bowed respectfully. Time passed quickly. 2 hours later, the sea army led by Queen Medusa successfully entered the 36 islands area of the bay. A huge tsunami also followed. There are several nearby islands that bear the brunt of the storm. One of the islands was directly engulfed by the tsunami. Several other islands were also severely damaged. In a short period of time, a large number of wild monsters and native intelligent creatures were swallowed by the tsunami. Before they could react, they directly became the lunch of the sea beasts. However, Queen Medusa's army is not here to attack the 36 islands in the bay. This time, the Sea Clan, headed by the Medusa Empire, received a signal from the giant Dragon Clan asking for help and came to help the Dragon Clan resist the attack of the Angel Army. Last night, when he learned the news of the destruction of the Dragon Legion, the Dragon King of the Dragon Clan immediately contacted the Queen of Nature Elf and Queen Medusa. Their main army was wiped out in the Land of Plenty, and their home islands were simultaneously invaded by the fallen Angel Army. They had no choice but to ask for support. Throughout the history of the Dragon Clan, it seems that they have never been so miserable. All the time, the giant Dragon Clan is the pinnacle race standing in the world of floating islands. Basically no race can threaten them. In order to monopolize the 36 islands in the bay, they launched a war and directly drove the Naga clan to the land, highlighting the strength and arrogance of their race. However, this time, the Dragon Clan faced a catastrophe. The only thing worth celebrating is neither the Queen of Nature Elf nor Queen Medusa refused their request for help. Queen Medusa, who was located in the deep sea, immediately led the Sea Tribe's army across the ocean and across the sea. Even though her empire is deep in the sea, far away from the land. But she also understands the meaning of lips dying and teeth falling cold. Once the Angel Army captures the land, the next war plan must be their Medusa Empire. And with the strength of their clan, it is naturally difficult to resist the attack of the Angel Army. Working together with the Dragon Clan and the Nature Elf Clan is the best choice at this stage. Just at this time, Queen Medusa once again received news from the Dragon King. According to the news, the army of fallen angels in the Paradise Kingdom has been heading towards their center, Dragon Island, and needs urgent support. Let's go. Head to Central Dragon Island. Queen Medusa is also a straight thinker. Without any hesitation, he immediately led the Sea Clan army to Central Dragon Island. 75%. Chapter 438 The Frightened Dragons. Central Dragon Island, also known as Dragon Nest. It is the largest island in the entire Bay Area. Thousands of kilometers across. It is also the headquarters of the Dragon Clan. On this island, there are millions of giant dragons of different types living, as well as countless sub-dragon monsters. Giant dragon creatures, which are rare on land, are everywhere here. Of course, this was before. After the 500,000 dragon army was completely wiped out in the Land of Plenty, the number of dragons on the Central Dragon Island dropped below 1 million. There are about 800,000 left. There are many old dragons and young dragons among them. Generally speaking, compared to other races, the number of giant dragons is still very rare. This is because their reproductive capacity is too low. Most dragons can only lay eggs after living for hundreds of years, and not all dragon eggs can successfully hatch into young dragons. To hatch a dragon egg, not only does the dragon mother need to take careful care of it, but it also needs to provide it with a large amount of life energy and elemental magic power. Dragons are top creatures. He has possessed extremely strong fighting power throughout his life. If the supply of life energy and elemental magic power is insufficient, it is very likely that the baby dragon will die directly inside the dragon egg. The combination of various factors cause the population size of the dragon clan to increase very slowly. As long as the reproduction ability of the giant dragon clan is comparable to that of humans, even if it is comparable to the growth rate of the natural elves, this floating island world has long been ruled by the giant dragon clan. Although they are also top-notch units. But I have to admit that the single strength of the giant dragon far exceeds that of the natural elf. Especially below the holy level, a giant dragon can single-handedly challenge a group of natural elves. Only by stepping into the holy level and becoming a demigod. Only then will the gap between the two top arms be significantly shortened. At this moment, dark clouds envelop the entire Central Dragon Island. The harmony and prosperity that once existed have completely disappeared. All the dragons smelled the scent of war. They left the dragon's nest one after another and hovered over the Dragon Island. There was a young dragon roaring, expressing his inner fear and uneasiness. The dragon father and the dragon mother did not comfort them. Because they themselves are in this state. And they have a more important thing to do, which is to protect their Dragon Island. The enemy has already arrived. In the sky above the sea area of the Central Dragon Island, a full-scale fallen angel army is assembled. The total scale is more than 5 million. At a glance, it's almost like the sky is blocking out the sun. The surging evil and dark power came like a tsunami, and even the adult dragons and old dragons were frightened to the extreme, let alone the young dragons. Dragon God is on top. What kind of angels are these? It's completely different from the legend. The legendary angel is the Holy Spirit of the Holy and Light Camp, holy and immaculate. But these angels exude an evil aura that resembles creatures from the underworld, even no less than the void demons that appeared during the Holy Demon War. Even in myths and legends, there is no information about them. How could that four-winged angel be so huge? It's actually over 100 meters high. The mountain giants with Titan bloodline are only 20 or 30 meters tall. Facing that four-winged angel, the mountain giants all look extremely small. In that four-winged angel, I sense the terrifying aura of death. In front of her, I am as weak as an ant. It feels like she can cut me in half with just one sword strike. High in the sky, there were many adult dragons talking. Everyone is terrified and filled with fear. The four-winged angel, they call as the super hell warrior Kajusha from the fallen angel camp. Lin Yu had brought Kajisha out of the underground world earlier and let her come to the 36 islands in the bay to fight with the fallen angel army. This time, when the fallen angel army besieges Central Dragon Island, she will naturally appear. It's no wonder that the adult dragons feel fear. The fighting power of the super hell warrior Kajisha is comparable to that of a lower true god, and the energy fluctuations emanating from her body directly reach the level of a true god. The only difference between Kajusha and the true god is that she has no godhead. Nor can it release divine power. The energy angel heart in her body is the source of her power. The energy intensity and combat skills released are no less powerful than the divine power. The super hell warrior can be said to be the strongest weapon of the fallen angel camp. It took the 18-winged fallen archangel Astia tens of millions of years to research and create. It combines the power of extraordinary and technological civilization, and its combat effectiveness is naturally very amazing. The Dragon Clan and the fallen angel army faced each other at a distance of about 10,000 meters. The atmosphere was quite tense. Because war may start at any time. Just at this time, bright defensive shields appeared out of thin air, shrouding the entire Dragon Island. The Dragon Clan has activated its most advanced defense methods. At the same time, a group of huge dragons with extremely terrifying auras flew out from the center of Dragon Island. The leader is a golden dragon that is more than 200 meters long. It is none other than the ruler of the Dragon Clan, Dragon Emperor Angst. 75%. Chapter 439 The Stubborn Horned Lizard. I saw Dragon King Angst swaying. The body of the golden dragon, which was more than 200 meters long, disappeared. In his place was a middle-aged man wearing a golden magic robe, with a solemn face and golden vertical pupils, exuding a domineering aura. Dragons are the same as Warcraft. As long as you reach the level of the Holy Order, you can transform into a human form. However, there are also disadvantages. That means the dragon's true power cannot be unleashed. There is no way to breathe out the dragon's breath. Therefore, most of the time, the dragons basically maintain their original state. A distinguished guest from the Angel Clan, Dragon King Angst, spoke in human language and said in a voice like thunder, "You have invaded the territory of our Dragon Clan. I hope you can evacuate immediately and restore peace to this area." If it were other intruders, Dragon Emperor Angst would never say such nonsense. He directly ordered the dragon army behind him to start a battle. But now, the force is stronger than the people. Their Dragon Clan faced an army of millions of angels. No matter how arrogant and confident the dragons are, they dare not say that they can withstand the attack of this angel army. If one of them fails, the entire Dragon Island will be broken into pieces. The glory of the Dragon Clan is likely to disappear. Therefore, for the Dragon Clan, it is best not to have this war happen. For this, they can even pay some price, such as giving their treasures to those angels. Shortly after Dragon King Angst's words fell, a tall and beautiful figure flew out of the camp of the fallen angel army. This is a 12-winged fallen angel. It was summoned by Lin Yu yesterday. Among this army of more than 5 million fallen angels, there are a total of 10 12-winged fallen angels, all of whom are at the peak of demigods. At the same time, before they were summoned, they were all master gods with great divine power. Life in hell is too boring. In addition to practicing, I just play hell monsters. The high-ranking fallen angels have long been exhausted and eager to leave hell. Not to mention, this is the Supreme Creator calling them. In order to grab a spot in the lower realm, their heads were almost broken. Those 12-winged fallen angels who have just entered the main god level cannot be defeated at all, and they cannot grab a spot. Those who are qualified for the lower realm are basically 12-winged fallen angels at the peak level of the lower gods. As for the sudden fall from the main god to the demigod, This isn't a big deal either. As long as they enter the 10,000 Realms battlefield and with the help of the Divine Stone, it is very simple for them to return to their peak state. Just like Gladys and Silveria, without the Divine Stone, they simply relied on daily practice and killing enemies. Now they have returned to the level of 10-winged fallen angels, and their levels have reached the peak of demigods. If the power of rules in this world were not too weak, they would have become gods long ago. It's easy to want peace. The 12-winged fallen angel said in a cold voice, "Lower your heads obediently and become a believer in the Supreme Creator, and you can survive." Hear this. Dragon King Angst's face suddenly darkened. The giant dragons behind him roared even more. They are proud dragons, how can they easily bow their heads to foreigners? Throughout the history of their dragon clan, no dragon has ever surrendered to other races, of course the dragon knights are not included. Dragon King Angst said in a deep voice, "Tens of millions of years ago, the evil Void Demon clan failed to conquer the ancestors of our dragon clan." The 12-winged fallen angel interrupted him. "The Void Demons are just the defeated generals of my angel clan. If the demon emperor of the Void had not exploded his demonic body and escaped by chance, he would have died in the hands of the Supreme Creator and would have never even thought of escaping from this universe. She participated in the Holy Demon War that year. No one knows how many Void Demons died in her hands. I have seen with my own eyes how His Majesty the Demon Emperor of the Void Demon clan was ravaged by their Supreme Creator." Dragon King Angst was silent. He admitted that the Angel clan was awesome. All intelligent races in the universe know this. However, this is not the reason why their dragon clan can surrender. Otherwise, how can they face the great dragon god they believe in? Although they are not titans, they still have the war genes of the titans flowing in their bodies, as well as the will to never admit defeat. Lowering your head to a foreign race will be a shame to the entire dragon clan. They are also discrediting the titans. Then we can only start a war. Dragon King Angst responded in a low voice. At the same time, he glanced at the defensive shield covering the entire central Dragon Island. Dragon Island's defensive shield does not only have one layer. Rather, there are many layers. He believed that these defensive shields were enough to help the Dragon Clan to hold on until the support from the armies of the Natural Elf Empire and the Medusa Empire arrived. "Stubborn horned lizard," the 12-winged fallen angel said coldly. Then he grabbed a fallen angel sword burning with black flames from the void. Point the sword tip directly at the central Dragon Island. The army of fallen angels obeyed the order and used war to destroy the pitiful self-esteem and so-called glory of these lizards. With an order, the super hell warrior Kajusha took the lead. She held high the super giant fallen angel sword, which was tens of meters long, and slashed at the defensive shield of the central Dragon Island from a distance of 10,000 meters. 75%. Chapter 440 The Power of Kajusha's Sword. Kai, that was the sound of sword light cutting through time and space. The sword light bursting out from the fallen angel sword was thousands of meters long. And across 10,000 meters in an instant. Cut through the defensive shield of Dragon Island. In an instant, a bright light bloomed. It was like the sun exploding, extremely dazzling. At the center of the light, the defensive shield struck by the sword light suddenly trembled violently. The next moment, a huge crack appeared. This crack penetrated the entire defensive shield at a speed that was invisible to the naked eye. Bang 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 bang. In an instant, layers of defensive shields exploded one after another. In just one breath, all the defensive shields stacked up by the Dragon Clan collapsed. However, the sword light continued to move towards the central Dragon Island below without losing momentum. There was a loud bang. The entire central Dragon Island is shaking. Mountains collapsed. Vast tracts of forests were destroyed. When the sword light dissipated and the smoke subsided, what came into view was a huge underground crack. It extends to the end of heaven and earth. It was as if the entire central Dragon Island was cut in two by this sword light. Saw this scene. All the scales of the giant dragons on the island exploded, making their hair stand on end. Even Dragon King Angst, who is a peak demigod, is the same. They had never seen such a horrific attack. This is definitely not something that mortal-level creatures can do. Only the true god has such great power. It's just horrible. They didn't know that this was because Super Hell Soldier Kajusha only used less than half of her strength. If she uses all her firepower, she can easily cut Dragon Island in half. The reason why this was not done was because the attack power of that level was too strong, and the world rules of this floating island could not bear it, and it was easy for space-time cracks and cosmic black holes to appear. This kind of cosmic disaster will cause great harm to the floating island world. It could even lead to the end of the world. The gain outweighs the loss. However, destroying the defensive shield covering the central Dragon Island with one strike has achieved its goal. Next, all that is needed is for the army of fallen angels to march into Dragon Island and wipe out those giant dragons that refuse to lower their heads. Quite a coincidence. Just when the army of fallen angels was preparing to move out to completely end the fate of the Dragon Clan. Behind the fallen angel army, a huge wave suddenly appeared. Above the waves, there were densely packed sea beasts and countless sea warriors. This was obviously the sea army headed by the Medusa Empire and the sea beast army coming over. In the northeast direction, the far end of the horizon, a row of elongated black shadows also appeared. As the black shadow continues to pull towards the central Dragon Island, you can see that it is a war airship with exquisite shape and full of natural elf style. They are elf airships, the war weapon of the nature elves. The total number reached more than 50,000 ships. And on each elf airship, there are one or more elf legions gathered. Every natural elf in the legion is fully armed and full of fighting spirit. The army of the natural elf empire has also arrived. And from the perspective of orientation, the armies of the three races happen to appear as a triangle, surrounding the fallen angel army in the middle. From a war perspective, being attacked from three sides is also a taboo for military strategists. Dragon God is on top. Our reinforcements have finally arrived. The Queen of Nature Elf and Queen Medusa did not disappoint our Dragon Clan. They brought a huge main army. Suddenly, the dragons on Dragon Island suddenly became excited, as if they had seen a savior. With the aid of the Nature Elf Empire and the Medusa Empire, they barely gained any confidence that they could defeat the fallen angel army. The panic caused by the power of the sword just now dissipated a lot. All tribesmen gathered together. Dragon King Angst immediately issued an order and said, "We are responsible for holding back the angel army from the front and waiting for the armies of the Natural Elf Empire and the Medusa Empire to surround us from the rear. All the Yolong legions also attack. Our Dragon Clan must win this war. As you command, His Majesty the Dragon King." The dragons roared in unison. The so-called sub-dragon army is composed of sub-dragon monsters. When he learned that the army of fallen angels was coming, Dragon Emperor Angst quickly summoned all the sub-dragons from several nearby islands to form an army of about 3 million sub-dragons. There are all these dragons that fly in the sky, run on the ground, and swim in the water. Just as the Dragon Clan army was getting ready to attack, Queen Medusa took the lead in issuing the order to attack the fallen angel army. In an instant, countless sea tribes and sea beasts rushed towards the fallen angel army with huge waves. On the top of the waves, another Medusa battleship emerged. The densely packed magic energy cannon began to charge. She wants to bombard the fallen angel army. In the other direction, more than 50,000 elf airships gathered were also ready for war. Following the order from the Queen of Nature Elf, all the magic energy cannons loaded on the elf airships began to charge. However, their target is not the fallen angel army. Millions of magic energy cannons pointed their muzzles emitting dazzling light at Queen Medusa's sea army and sea beast army. At Queen Medusa's sea army and sea beast army.